job? Okay, almost everybody. It's great. That's really good news because Vue is amazing. We already heard Alex talking a bit about Vue before, and it's really fun. But sometimes Vue.js might not be enough for like a full-blown application. And when your project grows, well, just an SPA might not be enough. So, well, there is a solution for that. And the solution is called Nuxt.js. So, but what is this Nuxt.js? What is it? Well, it's a progressive framework. It's built on top of Vue 3 and Vite, so it's also very fast, especially development mode, but also in production. It's fully written in TypeScript. This is quite new for version 3. In version 2, it was not written in TypeScript, so we did a rewrite there. And it's also very performant and lightweight out of the box. And of course, the newest developer come and say, oh yeah, I add like a 2 megabyte image, some tracking script, and it's all gone again. But out of the box, that works well. And we even have solutions for the just mentioned problems. Another thing is that it's very versatile. So usually say, yeah, I build an SPA, and then it's maybe I want to generate that page, or maybe, hey, let's do server-side rendering in general. Or what if I don't want any JavaScript on like a sub-site there? Maybe it's a landing page that doesn't need JavaScript. Well, and all that and more, Nuxt can do. Also, one important part is that it's universally deployable. So what does that mean? Well, you're not locked in into some kind of platform. If you say, hey, today we host on our own VPS, and tomorrow I want to move to AWS, it's usually just a bit of configuration. But it's not like, oh, we only partner with our own amazing, super cool cloud. No, no worries. And Nuxt also runs on the edge, so on Cloudflare Workers, for example, and edge handlers. That all works fine. It's also very important to mention it's optimized, so the cold starts are as fast as possible in a like millisecond area and just one figure. So serverless works pretty well with that too. And another thing to mention is that usually when your app grows, there come in some very weird requirements, like, oh, we generate that site. Can we maybe strip some stuff out there or add our own weird things? And it's very easy to actually extend the framework and hook into the processes to make sure that the requirements the business has can be satisfied. Because in the end, it's nice if it works for you, but if the app doesn't do what it should do, why did you write a code, right? And usually when I talk about Nuxt.js, which is quite common, I do some live coding. But today, in the morning, somebody said, yeah, nobody needs a joke website, right, Chris? So we don't do that. Also, time is a bit scarce. Maybe a little bit. And I will talk about some features of Nuxt that are pretty nice. So first, we have the folder structure. You can do whatever you want, right? There are no like folder structures by default. You can start very simple to prototype your app. You usually have just an app.vue over there. And a Nuxt config, you don't even need that. It's usually empty if you start. Your package.json, if you use TypeScript, a TS config. Easy. But of course, that can grow to more if you say, oh, yeah, let's add some components, some assets, composables, some content, and so on and so on. We take a look first at one of these folders, which is the pages folder. So, of course, if you have an application, it's not just a simple landing page. We want to create some routes. So how do you do that? Well, we add .vue files in our pages folder. And that gives us some kind of PHP vibes, but in a good way. Yeah. So we can just add, let's say, hello.vue, and this will actually map to /hello on our application. So we can just drop them in. And even if we say, OK, maybe you want a dynamic route, have some parameters, we write them in square brackets and can use them then. And the good part is if you have used Vue before, used Vue router and wrote down all the route files, it's annoying, it's boring, and we don't even need AI to automate that away. We just need Nuxt. So yeah, the good part is also there that you can even use partial parameters in routes. So let's say artist, dash, and then square bracket groups. That works as well. So even if you have one part of your URL that's static and one that's a parameter, that's fine. And of course, nesting works as well. Nested routes are a breeze to work with as well. And then, OK, we have these wonderful routes. We have this slug maybe, or this group. But what now? We maybe want to use these route parameters that we actually get. It's nice that we have user with ID too, but what do we do with that? And how do we do it? So we need to access that parameter somehow. And you can do that by using $route in the template. Very easy to just say, hey, let's render that here. Just print it out. But OK, once again, we can show that. That's it. So if you go to artist/rock, there will be that HTML down here saying group rock. But we can do more. We also have a composable. So with Vue 3 in the composition API, you have these things called composables. That is called use route. And with use route, you get all the access to the route information. And it can then say, OK, I want to get the param. For example, I named it group in my file. So I get route params group. Looks very similar to what we did in the template here, and that's on purpose. And then we can use it. And one more thing, we have to use Nuxt.link, because as soon as the page is in SPA, we don't necessarily want that full refresh. So we use a component called Nuxt.link. We don't use A tags, because we want all the SPA benefits. Even if you say, oh, I want to link to a totally external site, that will also work. And in Vue 3, you usually use router-link. Here, we use Nuxt.link, which is based on router-link, but is a bit, well, let's say it's a bit supercharged. Because, for example, it can prefetch pages if they're in the viewport. So it gives you some performance goodies here. And as I mentioned, it also handles external links in addition to internal links. So that's great. And yeah, you can just specify the path or the URL for the to-prop and do something like this, Nuxt.link to about, and go to the about page. And that works. If you put in HTTPS google.com, that will also work. And then we have another neat feature, which is auto imports. So in Vue, what you would write in plain Vue over here is like this. You get some reactivity things like a ref, reactive reference, or compute it. And then we define, let's say, an author using the ref. And we define some books, and then say, OK, are there books published, right? And in Nuxt, you can do the same, but it's a bit shorter. And that's mainly because I will just leave out the first line in the plain Vue over here. We don't need that. Nuxt auto imports all the things from the Vue API, and even your own stuff, which I'll show in a second. So it's really cool, because it saves you some lines and still gives you full IntelliSense and TypeScript support. Because if you use ref, OK, where should it come from? It's not your own implementation. It's from Vue. And that also works for composables. Like when you write an own composable, let's say use API, and export that, either like export function and export const in here, or even with a default export, you would use in plain Vue import that, or maybe also from a library like Vue use. But in Nuxt, well, you can just get rid of the imports, and it will just work. And once again, you still have the full TypeScript auto-completion. If you click on it, you can even go to the source. So that comes in really handy. The only thing is you have to save the composables in a composables folder. And here we're again with the supercharged folder structure. And that also works, by the way, if you have a library, for example. You can even say, hey, please auto-import some exports of a library. You can configure that in your Nuxt config, or you can even use modules that do that for you. For example, vue-use has Nuxt module. You just get that in, and that's it. And there are some, well, if we talk about modules, there are some really cool modules, some community-made, officials, lots of. And one special one is called Nuxt Content. So if some of you are familiar with Markdown, I guess everyone. But me, some are like familiar with MDX, right? Nice, JSX and Markdown, cool. We kind of can do the same with Vue and single file components, so we can render components in the Markdown with Nuxt Content. So we have a content folder, and there you can provide your content as Markdown, also YAML, CSV, JSON. We handled it all. We provide something for content highlighting and to query the content in like a Mongo-like syntax. So you can kind of build like a file-based CMS out of that. And as I mentioned, you can even use Vue components in there. So if you have an index Markdown file and you write something like that with these double colons and write alert and then the props in here like type warning, this is actually showing the alert component that you've defined before, if you define it. So that allows you to build a content-heavy site while still using interactive components. And then, you know what, maybe I'll showcase this one, because that's always fun. Nitro Pack. Nitro Pack, or Nitro for short, is Nuxt's server engine. And the good part is you can even use it without Nuxt. And certain other frameworks like Solid Start or Analog in the Angular work, they use that as well as the underlying foundation. And you can think of it as Express, but modern, faster, better. Very, very easily said. And once again, Nitro has something called H3. So yeah, yet another HTTP3 framework, so to say, that's way more simple and lightweight, and it's powered by that. So one of the philosophies we had while building Nuxt is, OK, everything that's not tied to the core, let's extract it into packages, isolate it, make it easier to test and to reuse, and people around the world use it for their projects. And Nitro is also responsible for deployments, meaning you can also deploy Solid Start, for example, anywhere because of Nitro. And yeah, you know what? Let's just do that real quick. I will open my VS Code in a little Nuxt demo. I will also upload the code in a bit. And here we are. Quickly switching to the browser, to the other browser and open localhost 3000. And we have this let's go here. Because I created just a very simple Nuxt application. If we see here on the side, we have the app.vue to start. We have a Nuxt config that's almost empty. It's just for the styles. And the dev tools I will show in a bit. And here we don't have much. We have a public folder with just a fav icon. And we have this server folder here and an API folder. So let's just create a new file here saying conf.ts. OK? And let's create a Nitro event handler. And just return, let's say, a JSON with conference. And we are in City.js Berlin. OK, perfect. We save this. And now let's say, OK, we go back to the browser and write slash. Oh, we have the slash already, I hope. Well, let's just refresh to do it once again. Slash API slash city. Oh, no, God. One sec. I'll move that over, because I will show that that's better. API slash, not city, slash conf. Go over here, and we have City.js Berlin over there. So we can create API endpoints on the go, on the fly. And there's one more thing to do. So if we created it here, we want to fetch some data, right? Maybe a bit smaller like this. Go back to app.vue over here, or like any Vue component, and we have a composable called useFetch. So if you write useFetch here, we can fetch some data. And oh, what's there? Slash API slash conf. That's what we just created. Wow, we have auto-completion for our routes that we created. And let's ignore what Copilot is doing there and just say const result is await that. And now we can say, OK, result.data.value. We don't need the value, I think. Let's give that to check. Go back to the local host. Here, conference City.js Berlin. And this is not the moment where I should clap, because that will come in a second. If we remove the result here and write data in here, and we hover over the data, it says conference string. So we have full end-to-end type safety from our Nitro API routes all the way into Nuxt. Which framework can offer that? Exactly, just Nuxt. Here we go. And if you can use that right here once again to show that. So that's, I think, one of my favorite features that still works, of course. And it's good to go. Another thing are the dev tools. It's, yeah, I have to make it a little bit smaller. Hi. Let's get started here. And there we go. If I would hit the button properly. And yeah, the dev tools show not only the versions, we can even say, OK, we don't have any pages, otherwise they would be listed here. And it also shows which components are used, what imports. And we have this module tab. And we can even say, hey, let's install a module, like the Tailwind CSS module. Let's just install that, click on it, and it says, OK, you know what? Your Nuxt config will be adapted. That's what will happen. Then there will be a restart, and then the module will be available. We can just do that one click. And the dev tools will communicate with your application server, actually allowing you to install that. Then a restart will happen. And while this is doing, I will quickly open the Nuxt config. And we'll see here that, oh, yeah, that line was actually added. Awesome. And the Tailwind module is now installed, as we can see, so we could use it straight away. So all that, in theory, there's even, just for fun, a VS Code tab. So you could even run your own VS Code in the dev tools, editing the Nuxt application. And the Nuxt dev tools are also a Nuxt application, the Nuxt application. And I stopped the inception part now. But this just shows what the dev tools are capable of. And the best part is they're extensible once again. So you can change anything. You can add stuff, add your own things, from simple iframes to complex integrations. OK, so far, so good. Yes, we have the full IntelliSense and type support for Nitro endpoints, and that's it. And now, also a really nice goodie, rendering modes. I just mentioned before, OK, it's very easy to switch between client-side rendering, server-side rendering. You can do it through a config, or you can even say, hey, just pre-render my whole website by using Nuxt Generate. But you can even mix that. You can say, this site pre-rendered, here no JavaScript, the rest SPA, and here a bit of SSR. You can do that through something called route rules. So you can define per path, hey, OK, that route / the index page that should have incremental static regeneration. So it will be basically cached for 60 seconds and then will be revalidated, and even in the background, so through stale by revalidate. So the users don't even see that they have good performance because it's cached straight away. And you can even set that to true, what we do down here, to say, OK, you know what? Let's just keep that in cache forever until the next build. So it's really incremental static regeneration. Oh, I have a new article. Someone clicks on it. It will be generated. And it's there. And you can do way more. As I said before, experimentally disable no script, so no JavaScript at all, just super fast website. You can set headers. You can set SSR to false, and so on and so on. There are lots of rules that make possible to customize how your pages and also your sub-pages are rendered. So yes, all of them, actually. We have style by validate as well as like a single rule that also works. And they're really amazing. And once again, this also works when using Nitro. So this is actually configuration that will be passed to Nitro. And then, yeah, the DevTools have just shown that a bit. And yeah, deployment. As I mentioned before, there are 10+ platforms that we tested. It works fine. There are 0 config platforms. So if you deploy to Netlify, it'll be like, ah, Nuxt side. Great. That works. That's good. Just have to connect it to your repo, as usual. It also has Deno support and Bun support. So if you're interested in that, if you're using the hot new stuff, there you go. No problem. And if you say, our company has this weird service, I need to do something with that and deploy it, you can even write your own adapter, or in this case, your own preset. And most likely you don't need it because node servers are also supported, generation is fine. And there's way more. We can go deeper into the Nuxt config, we can go deeper into runtime config about handling environment variables without rebuilding the apps, layouts, extends, which is a really nice feature. So you take an application, just say, OK, this is my base. I want everything from the application, and maybe override a component here, add some logic. So great for white-labeled applications of different customers that needs different functionalities. So basically, you can extend Nuxt applications in as many layers as you want. But that's just as a brief outlook. There's a whole talk about that already, actually, that I gave last year. There's error handling, of course, built in. We have transitions, data fetching, which I just showed a little bit about. State management without Pinia, but also with Pinia if you want. Some plugins and modules, well, how to write one. There's lots of stuff. So TLDR, universal deployment is very important. We don't want any vendor lock-in. The developer experience is phenomenal. I mean, come on. It just worked end-to-end type safety. What else do you want for now? And good DX, sensible defaults make a happy developer that also cares more about, hey, now I can write the application as I want it. And Vue is nice, but Nuxt is more than just Vue and a bit of magic because it's a progressive app-level framework to reduce friction around developing your application. Thanks a lot to my sponsors on GitHub. I'm very grateful that I can spend